AITA for giving crappy Christmas gifts and ruining my marriage? I'm 31-year-old female married on 33-year-old male, my soon-to-be ex-husband in 2018. My in-laws never liked me and made it clear. SBX insisted that they're just putting up a tough exterior and they'll grow to love me. To show how evil they are, one time I joined them for dinner and brought a cake I'd made, because I was always raised to be a gracious guest. When I stepped into the kitchen and offered the cake to his mother as a thank you for inviting me, she took the plate over to the garbage bin, dumped it in, and handed me the plate back. When I told my husband what she did, he confronted her, and all of a sudden the crocodile tears started, and she claimed she grabbed the plate but didn't get a good grip. I let go too quickly, and it fell to the floor, so of course it had to be thrown away. My SL confirmed that was what happened. My SBX owned his own business, and they called me a gold digger behind his back. Of course, they insisted on a prenup, which I didn't care about because I never thought my marriage would end, and it would appease them and may allow them to finally treat me kindly. Nope. His business failed once COVID hit. We went through his savings and my own trying to keep it afloat. I refused to go into debt to keep it going, so he closed it down. In 2022, he was suffering from really bad depression because he lost his business and couldn't find new work. He suggested we move to his hometown, closer to his family, so we had a larger support network. Against my best judgment, we did. He wanted to only work part-time while he tried to restart his business, so I became the main breadwinner. And as with most wives, I became the person in charge of buying gifts. Stupid old me thought buying them thoughtful, expensive gifts would finally make them see I wanted to be accepted by them. Gifts to us were a couple's gift, but clearly for my SBX only. Every holiday was spent with them. Monthly dinners with the whole family. After a year, I realized that if I ever tried to talk or join a conversation, everyone would go quiet, so I just stopped talking when I visited. In early December, they finalized plans for Christmas. A few days later, my SBX said his family decided they didn't want me to join them for Christmas Eve dinner and Christmas lunch because I ruined the family vibe. I replied, "Fine, we'll do our own thing instead." My SBX sheepishly looked away and said he was still going to go. I was livid and so disappointed in him. That was the moment I knew my marriage was over. So I returned the presents I had bought for his family. In their place, I got one pair of novelty business socks for FIL, a supermarket brand bottle of shampoo for MIL, the nastiest perfume I could find at the dollar store for SL. The most expensive gift was a large rawhide bone for BIL and his wife's chihuahua, too big for it to get its jaw around, rendering it useless. I saved about $600 to put on a deposit for a new apartment. My husband come home from Christmas lunch telling me I humiliated him and embarrassed him in front of his family. I asked him why would he think I buy nice gifts for people who clearly don't like me and don't want me around? Served divorce papers last week. Remember how he was supposed to be a millionaire by now, so he had that prenup? SBX is not eligible for any of my savings. It was required to keep separate accounts or alimony. He doesn't have money for rent and auto insurance. Not my problem anymore. Some of my friends and family are on my side and proud that I went out in a blaze of glory. Others are telling me I was being way too petty, which isn't really like me. So, AITA? Update 1. First, for those who asked how the deposit on my new apartment was only the $600 I saved on the gifts, it certainly wasn't. I had to dip into savings, but that $600 helped. My SBX didn't bother reaching out to me after I left until he was served the divorce papers and my lawyer made it clear we're exercising the prenup. Then it was loving voicemails and texts I never picked up from him and his family for a few days trying to convince me to come back, which eventually turned to threatening and cruel voicemails and texts when it was clear I wasn't budging. My lawyer suggested I don't block them so we have evidence of harassment if needed. Basically, give them the rope to hang themselves with. But then last night I got call after call from my SBX. Stupidly, I picked it up thinking there was some kind of emergency or something. I barely got hello out when he said, "The rent is a week late." I told him that's strange because I paid my landlord 6 days ago. He paused and sighed dramatically and replied, "No, the rent for here." I reminded him I don't live there, and he shouldn't expect rent. Hugh's parents both texting me that they're going to sue me to pay the remainder of the lease entirely. I'm not worried about having an eviction on my record, since the apartment is in his parents' names. When we first announced we were moving to his hometown, they rented an apartment for us right away so we could move right in. They've been renewing the lease each year. We had to pay his parents, and then they write a check to the landlord, who has no idea who SDBX and I are, let alone that we live there. Red flag, I know. I'm glad I had a few weeks to prep my leaving since they'd probably use the fact that it's their apartment to kick me out immediately. Divorce is probably going to be a bumpy ride with this man-child and his psycho parents. Any advice from anyone who's been through it is welcome. Update 2. First post. My husband's family uninvited me from Christmas. Husband still left and made me celebrate Christmas alone. I organized shitty gifts as a final bird flip. First update. I moved out and my underemployed SDBX and his family still expected me to pay rent on the apartment in my in-laws' names. So the people who commented that my soon-to-be former in-laws were probably charging my SDBX and me more than the amount on the lease, you called it. And we wouldn't have found out if they weren't so entitled and determined to hurt me. They got a cousin who happens to be a lawyer to send me a letter demanding I pay the entirety of the remainder of the lease, or they will file suit and force me to pay it. Clearly a scare tactic. So my lawyer sent a formal request to their lawyer for a copy of the lease, which I've never seen, and a copy of their written agreement with us as subleasees, which doesn't exist. They sent the lease and insisted the sublease agreement was a verbal contract. Not only is subleasing explicitly prohibited, but my mother-in-law and father-in-law had been charging us an extra $200 each month. So we've notified the landlord that I've been living there with my SDBX and the leases were living in their own house throughout the duration of the lease and sent copies of my driver's license with the address and over 2 years of bank and credit card statements with the address listed. They were served with a 30-day eviction yesterday, which I know about because MIL left a voicemail about me kicking my SDBX out of his home and that she now drives with a baseball bat in her car and she'll be keeping an eye out for me. LOL. Obviously, my lawyer's expertise is family law, and this was out of her purview. So she referred me to a colleague who focuses on real estate law. We met today to devise a battle plan, and I am now suing my MIL and FIL for all the money I can prove I transferred for rent for the entirety of the residency there, since the apartment was technically not a legal apartment to rent since they couldn't sublease. No clean hands to rent to us, and then sue me. He's not sure how a judge will buy it, and it's way beyond my state's civil compensation limit. But he's confident that it will scare them and leave them open to settling for just returning the additional $200 from each payment, which I think is fair because I did live there with my SDBX, so I don't think it's right to get all the rent money back. I'm an adult and adults pay rent, and I don't want them to have the satisfaction of saying I'm using the divorce as a windfall. On the SDBX front, there's no news there. We will likely need to go to family court for a separation order since he won't agree to the financial details of the separation agreement my lawyer has drafted. My state requires a 1-year separation period before a divorce can be finalized, so this is going to be a long process. A few people asked why he did what he did and if he's offered any kind of explanation or justification. We haven't really talked since he was served. I don't know if he just fell out of love, but I was still financially convenient, or if the mask finally lifted, or if it was being so close to his family and them having opportunities to manipulate him. I don't know, and I don't care. I don't need closure. I need them all gone. Looking back, making promises during couples counseling and slowly regressing back is enough closure. Knowing he allowed his family to treat me like crap for so long is closure. That final betrayal at Christmas is closure. My focus isn't on figuring it out. It's making sure I'm happy. Update 3. Summary of previous events. That is the clownery of my life. My ex's family treated me like crap for years. In my naivete, I told myself to just try harder. They uninvited me to Christmas for always ruining the family vibe. My ex decided to celebrate with family because his wife isn't family and left me to celebrate Christmas alone. I decided to return their expensive, thoughtful presents with cheap, crappy ones as a final fuck you. Moved out and filed for divorce. Ex can't afford the rent on the old apartment alone. The apartment is actually leased to his parents, and they demanded I pay the remainder of the rent or they'll sue. My lawyer and I sue them. Turns out the sublease was illegal. They charged us, me, since my ex was a deadbeat, $200 extra per month that they pocketed. We notify the real landlord. My ex got an eviction notice. So I had our first, and it turns out only, mediation meeting with the in-laws about the excess rent they were charging me and my ex a few weeks ago. The in-laws tried to claim they charged us extra for their role as property managers of the apartment. They couldn't explain in any way what they did as property managers to justify a fee of $200 a month other than chatting with their son about the apartment several times a month, i.e., charging us to talk to their own son. Then it came to the sublease being a verbal contract since we never signed anything, and my lawyer asked on which date I verbally agreed. I never did, actually, since my ex handled all of those conversations with his parents prior to our move. They said they couldn't remember, but since I moved in, I obviously agreed to the arrangement they made for my ex. My lawyer told them that it sounds like any verbal contract was with their son, and given the terms were oral and unclear, they will be too difficult and costly for them to enforce. He added all of that as a moot point since they didn't have the authority to sublease, anyway, and their case wouldn't get more than the 30 seconds it would take for the judge to dismiss it. He then told them that we'd be pursuing the lawsuit unless they settled on returning $6,200, and we'll give them time to discuss the deal with their lawyer. I was suing for the return of the excess, not full rent since I lived in the apartment. Within an hour, their lawyer called mine to agree to a settlement of $5,400, since technically the little bit my ex paid for rent should have a proportionate amount applied to some of that excess. We agreed to it. My divorce lawyer also sent them a cease and desist letter about the harassment, warning them that if it continues, I will file for a restraining order, and I have plenty of evidence to have it granted. A lot of people asked why I haven't done this already, but I'd rather not go nuclear unless I have to. My ML's job would very likely be affected if she has an RO, and she will just go scorched earth even harder. Thankfully, this seems to have been enough of a wake-up call for her in particular, and the texts, emails, and voicemails have stopped entirely. I also learned from mutual friends that my ex was already on dating apps a few weeks after I left, but apparently nothing goes beyond a first date. I guess women don't want to get involved with a 33-year-old unemployed entrepreneur who lives with and lives off his parents and is still chasing some elusive business he hasn't been able to start up. LOL. All communication with him has been through my lawyer except for 2 incidents. A few weeks ago, he called me at 3 a.m. completely drunk, leaving a voicemail asking to fix things. He called the next day to apologize for that. Time for second story. Let's go. Husband attempted to manipulate me. I called his bluff. Now what? I, 35-year-old female, have been married to my husband, 37-year-old, for 5.5 years, and we have an 18-month daughter. We have generally had a good marriage, but have repeatedly had the same argument for 3+ years. The argument is that I work full-time, pay 85% of our bills, and do all of the cooking, cleaning, shopping, laundry, running of the household, etc. He also works full-time, But after work comes home and immediately takes his work clothes off, throws them on the couch in my living room, and goes into the family room to watch YouTube. I have repeatedly asked for help and get the runaround. The last week and a half or so, I had been running 80 miles an hour getting ready for the holiday this week. I was cleaning the house, washing the bedding in the guest room, cleaning the fridge, doing all the bits and pieces that you need to do to host family for Thanksgiving. I was also doing all of my daily things as well. For example, on a typical day, I wake up, make sure mine, and the baby's lunches are packed. She's dressed for daycare. My work bag is packed. Drive to work. After work, I drive to the daycare to pick up baby girl, often taking meetings via phone on the commute. Do any errands that need done, grocery, Costco, pharmacy, etc. Come home, immediately breastfeed the baby. Start dinner so we can eat once he's home. Give the baby a bath. Let her play while I clean off the table, do the dishes, clean the kitchen, tidy up, feed her again, get her to sleep, and then finally take a shower myself. It's basic daily tasks, but I don't stop until 9 to 10 at night. Last week I asked again for help, but was told that he needed the break because he is tired. I naturally told him that I never get a break, and I'm tired too and need help with the house. And if he can't contribute half financially, he can at least contribute half of the cleaning. He shut down and just gave me the silent treatment for 2 days, then asked me if I wanted to go to his mother's house with him and the baby. I said only if he wasn't going to ignore me the whole time. That was the match that lit the fuse. He exploded. Evidently, I have done nothing but bitch for the last 3 years. He hates cleaning and isn't going to do it. That if him contributing is such a big deal, then we should divorce. I asked him to explain what that looks like to him. He said, I'll get an apartment and sign the house over to you. Refinance it in your name. We'll split custody 50-50 and split her expenses 50-50 as well. He then stormed out of the house and went to his mother's until about 1 a.m. He again gave me the silent treatment for 2 days. The other day I asked him how his apartment hunting was going, and he said what? I told him I thought he was right. I had been bitching about this for 3 years. I'm miserable, and he's not helping make my life easier. That I agreed divorce is the best option, and that I would rather separate as friends and be good co-parents than grow to hate him and feel stuck in a toxic marriage. He then said, I only said that to scare you into shutting up. Basically, he attempted to emotionally abuse/manipulate me to get his way. As someone who grew up in a toxic and abusive childhood, this immediately shut me down emotionally. Like I look at him and I feel nothing. He is trying now to get back in my good graces, bringing flowers, chocolates, and all it does is make me angrier. I need advice. Is the fact that he tried to manipulate me and admitted it a valid reason for me to just want to shut this down? Because I have to be honest, I'm tempted to ruin Thanksgiving. I don't know if I'm just angry and reacting out of that, or if I am truly at the end of my rope. Update. I did it. I filed for divorce. Our divorce should be final mid-June. He fought it for a few months, but finally seems to see that I can't move on, and I won't let him rug sweep it anymore. He is still talking about hoping for a future reconciliation, but I told him that honestly, without massive amounts of therapy for both of us, I don't see much hope there. Honestly, once he accepted that I wasn't giving in and that the divorce was real, he was very agreeable to discussing terms and working with me on custody arrangements, housing, etc. That's not to say we didn't have our drama. Lord knows we did. Fortunately, nothing too physical towards me. He grabbed me a few times trying to force me to stay in a room to get yelled at, but I set him straight real quick there. His threats were mostly towards self-harm. The first time was back in February. He was still in denial that I had filed and was very angry about losing the best things in his life. He threatened to go downstairs and take his own life. Because I'm stubborn as the day is long and don't have the sense God gave a goose, I followed him down there. I ended up wrestling his gun away and locking myself and the toddler in the bedroom. I should have called the police. I still don't know why I didn't. Instead, I called his brother and told him to come get him. They did, and the next day I took the gun that was unloaded and never had ammo because he was manipulating me again to his parents and said if that gun made another appearance in my home or around my child, I would ensure he was never around her again. It hasn't been seen since. A few weeks later, on their birthday, he jumped off my two-story deck after my daughter's birthday party. I didn't see it. I came down the hall and our 2-year-old said, "Mama, Daddy fall." I walked outside and he was kneeling by my lawnmower, said he was fixing it. Obviously, my 2-year-old hasn't learned to lie yet. I texted my friend and said, "I'm pretty sure he just jumped off the deck. He doesn't seem hurt, but what to do?" As I hit send, I hear him on the deck talking to our kid. I looked out the door and he's leaning off the edge, obviously about to jump again. I lost it. It probably wasn't the appropriate thing to say, and I probably am a terrible person for saying it, but it worked and I don't regret it. I told him, "So help me God, if you jump off this deck and die, I will move and your family will likely only see her once a year. You jump off this deck and live, and I guarantee you will never see her unsupervised again. You step back over that railing and get both feet on this deck right now, or I swear to God, I'll make sure of it." He stepped back on the deck pretty quickly. He, of course, wanted to then argue about how I am driving him to this, how he doesn't deserve to be left alone. I'm breaking his heart. I reminded him he spent the last almost 4 years now breaking my heart and spirit, and I was done having this conversation. As I turned to walk away, this man grabbed my wrist to force me to turn around. I already had my phone in my hand, and I never called 911 so fast. The police showed up and took him to the hospital for a psych evaluation. I was under the impression that a suicide attempt in this state required a 72-hour hold. They released him after 2 hours, suggesting he talk to a therapist. I didn't want to involve the police. I tried to avoid it, but I kind of wish I had involved them earlier. He has been much more docile and accepting since. No more grabbing, no more threats. We still argue, but at least the worst part seems to have disappeared. It helps that even his parents are telling him, "She called the cops on you. She's crazy. Let her go." I'm fine with being labeled the crazy one. I've been called worse by better people. Little bit of drama, but everything is going good now, and divorce should be final in mid-June. Send good vibes. What you think about this story? Write in the comment your opinion. On my channel, you can watch other revenge or cheating stories. See you soon, my dear viewer.